Hi everyone, this is the second part of our series of videos on solving equations without writing out the properties. In this video we're going to look at solving equations with variables on both sides of the equation, whereas in the previous video we only had variables on one side. You will not need your Springboard book for this, just like in the previous video, but make sure you have a piece of notebook paper ahead of you, in front of you, before you start. So before we get started solving this, there's a couple things we need to know. First of all, when we go to solve these equations, we want to be able to move all variables to one side. Okay? In this case, we can assume that the variables will be the same in all equations. And the way we move them is using either the addition or subtraction property of equality. Okay? And then after that, we want to make sure that we're applying the same properties of equality to solve. Okay, so we're going to apply all properties of equality to solve. Okay, so for this one, we have the first example, we have -2 plus x equals 1 minus 2x. Okay? There are multiple steps we need to take here in order to get this. And we want to do it in a way that leaves us with the most amount of positives. Okay? So I have a positive x on the left side of the first equation and a negative 2x on the right side. So I'm going to eliminate that negative 2x by adding. So I'm going to apply the addition property of equality. So plus 2x. And then I'm going to add 2x to the left side as well. That means that I'm left with only one side that has an x on it. Okay, so that's going to leave me with these x's going away. X plus 2x gives me 3x's altogether. Okay, now looking at the rest of the equation, leaves me with -2 plus 3x equals 1. So now that I have all my variables on one side, I'm going to go ahead and apply another property of equality here. So that means I'm going to apply the addition property of equality again by adding 2 to both sides of the equation. When I do that, I'm going to move this over here. You guys can keep moving down if you want to, but I want to make sure we have enough room. So when I add 2 to both sides, my -2 and +2 are going to cancel on the left side. And 1 plus 2 is 3. So I'm going to have 3 times some number equals 3. That's what results there. Now, once again, 3 times a number equals 3. That means I have to apply the inverse operation, which means I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3. My 3's cancel out on the left side. That means that 3 divided by 3 is 1. Therefore, my mystery number for this first equation is 1. Okay? Looking at the next equation, I have 3 minus x equals x plus 1. Once again, we want to make sure that we're adding, when we have a variable on either side of the equation, on both sides of the equation, we want to make sure that we have the least amount of negatives, the most amount of positives as possible. So with us having a negative x on the left side, I want to go ahead and get rid of that. So I'm going to add x to both sides of my equation. When I do that, my x's are going to cancel again because that becomes 0. And I'm left with 3 on the left side. An x plus another x gives me 2 x's. And then I'm going to add 1. Okay? Now, looking at the equation again, I have my variables on one side. That means I want to go ahead and eliminate all my non-variable items in the equation. So that means I'm going to draw my attention to this positive 1. I'm going to go ahead and eliminate that by subtracting 1 from both sides. 1 minus 1 cancels. 3 minus 1, once again, I'm going to move that over here so I have some room. You guys can keep moving down vertically. You don't have to move like I did. That's going to leave me with positive 2. So 2 is equal to 2 times some number. It's okay that x is on the right side. We can still solve this equation just like we did before. So 2 times some number equals 2. That means I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2. 2's cancel on both sides. Now technically 2 divided by 2 would cancel just like we saw here, but that means we're left with what number? We're left with 1. So in this case, the solution to this equation is 1, just like in the previous example. All right. Go ahead and try the next example out at the bottom here on your own. So 3 minus 4x equals negative 2 plus x. I'll give you a couple seconds to try this out. Go ahead and pause the video and try it out on your own here. Okay, so for this problem, you should have seen, or you should have concluded that x equals 1 again. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at another set of examples here. All right, so once again, variables are on both sides of the equation. These ones are a little bit more difficult. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first one. We have 3 times the difference of x and 1, so that's how we get x minus 1, is equal to negative 2 times the sum of x and 1. So once again, that's how we determine what goes in parentheses here. We look at it as the difference when it's subtraction and the sum when it's positive. So once again, like we've seen in all the examples before with parentheses, I'm going to take the number in front of my parentheses and multiply by what's inside. So that gives me 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Same thing with this side of the equation. I do negative 2 times x and negative 2 times 1. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. So now we have a new equation without parentheses, which is 3x minus 3 equals negative 2x minus 2. And what we're going to do is, once again, we want to apply the same strategy as we saw before. We want to get all of our variables to one side and have them be positive if we can. So we have a positive 3x on the left side and a negative 2x on the right side. So because we want to eliminate all the negatives, we're going to go ahead and add 2x to both sides of the equation. Now remember, we want to combine x's with x's. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides. I'm going to combine that 2x with my 3x. That's going to leave me with 5x minus 3 equals, 2x's cancel, negative 2. We're just going to move up here so that way we have some room. And so now, so I'm going to write this up here. So 5x minus 3 equals negative 2. All right, so we have our variables on one side of the equation. Now it's just a simple solving like we've seen before. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the addition property by adding 3 to both sides of the equation. Leaves me with, let's see here, 3's cancel, so I'm left with 5x equals negative 2 plus 3, so that's positive 1. So 5 times some number gives me 1. All right. The only way to find that out is divide by using the division property of equality. So divide by 5. 5's are going to cancel on the left side. 1 divided by 5, that actually is going to be a decimal. It's not going to be 5 because I have 1 divided by 5, not 5 divided by 1. So we can leave this as a fraction, 1/5, or we can write it as a decimal, which would be, if you do 1 divided by 5 in the calculator, gives me 2/10. Okay. Looking at the next example, 2 times the sum of 2x plus 1 equals 3x minus 1. All right, so only one set of parentheses we have to deal with here. So once again, take the number on the outside and distribute. So 2 times 2x, 2 times 1. That gives me 4x plus 2. It's equal to 3x minus 1. Okay. Now in this case, we have positive 4x on the left side, positive 3x on the right side. That means I want to take the smaller or the least number of x's and subtract that from both sides. So that's going to be 3x. So minus 3x minus 3x. And when we do this, what we're going to find is we get something a little bit nicer here. So 4x take away 3x is just a single x, plus 2 equals 3x's cancel, negative 1. I like the way this one looks because there's no coefficient in front of the x. So I'm left with literally just x plus 2 equals negative 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and subtract 2 from both sides of the equation. Subtraction property of equality. And that's going to leave me with x equals negative 3. So my solution for this equation is x equals negative 3. All right, go ahead and try the next one on your own here. Negative 2 times the sum of x and 1 equals negative 2x minus 7. All right, for this example here, what you should have come across as your solution is you should have ended up, once you got rid of your variables, you should have ended up with something that looks a little bit like this. You should have ended up with 0 equals negative 5. Now wait a minute here. 0 and negative 5, they're not equal. So that's a false statement. That means that we have to have a conclusion here. This is what we call a special solution. And because this is a false statement, that means that there are no solutions to this equation. Okay? So that's our conclusion for this example. I'll have these in all the examples I've had you try out. I'll have these worked out for you on our Google Classroom. But this concludes our second part in a video of solving equations with variables on one side as well as variables on both sides. Make sure you guys are practicing with the Delta Math, and I'll see you guys in class later today.